Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. I'd like to welcome you, dear viewers, to another in our series, Understanding the Qur'an. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In this segment, we continue with the story of Khidr and Musa. Prophet Moses is being taught by Al-Khidr. He traveled with him. Al-Khidr told him that there are certain things he was going to be doing on this journey which Prophet Moses would not be able to handle. It would be beyond his knowledge. He couldn't grasp it. And that's why, since it was beyond his knowledge, it was natural that he would not be able to be patient with it. But Moses insisted that, no, I'm going to be patient. I want to get this knowledge. However, the incidents took place and Prophet Moses fell apart. He couldn't hold himself. Al-Khidr damaged the boat of people who took them on a journey free. Moses couldn't take this. Why? Why did this happen? Why did you destroy the boat? Later, killed the boy. An innocent little boy playing with other boys. He grabbed him and twisted his head off. How can you kill somebody who's innocent? Obviously, this little boy could not have done any harm. He's small. Again, he couldn't contain himself. And then, when some people were inhospitable to them, treated them very badly, he rebuilt a wall in their city without seeking any benefit from it. Al-Khidr, Moses said to Al-Khidr, why would you want to do this? Why not take some money from them, since they're so, stingy, so bad in behavior? But that was it. He was given 3 chances, and then they had to part ways, as was destined. And now Al-Khidr would explain what was behind these incidents. He was not doing whatever he was doing out of his own mind. This was guidance from Allah. He didn't know the future of what would come, but everything he did concerned the future. When he destroyed the ship by making a hole in it, and not actually destroying it, but damaging it, that is, he saved that ship for the people who owned it. Though the people who owned it would have seen it as unfortunate. Somebody's just going to damage our ship. Why? But there was a king coming, Hudud, who was taking everybody's ships by force, just taking it, seizing them, taking them from them, giving them nothing in return. Of course, the damaged ship he wouldn't take. He'd leave it. No, it's a broken one. No point. I'll go and take the good ones. So that was, in fact, something good for the people who owned the boat, who were poor. Khidr saved them, saved that boat for them. Now, how did Khidr know? Obviously, Allah has informed him of the future, what was coming, that the king was coming. The second incident of killing the boy, in verses 80-81, we find Al-Khidr explaining to Musa what was behind it.
وَأَمَّا الْغُلَامُ فَكَانَ أَبَوَاهُ مُؤْمِنَيْنِ فَخَشِينَا أَن يُرْهِقَهُمَا طُغْيَانًا وَكُفْرًا فَأَرَدْنَا أَن يُبْدِلَهُمَا رَبُّهُمَا خَيْرًا مِّنْهُ زَكَاةً وَأَقْرَبَ رُحْمًا.
And as for the boy, his parents were true believers, and we feared that he would cause them grief by his rebellion and disbelief. We wanted their Lord to replace him with a more righteous and merciful child. Notice here, Al-Khidr is explaining what was behind it. When he described it, he said, we feared, indicating that this is not from himself. This is something of knowledge which is beyond himself. This was knowledge from Allah. The boy would have grown up to be a disbeliever, and his parents, who were righteous believers, would have been tried by his disbelief. His harm would have reached them and, in fact, caused them to fall into disbelief themselves. In order to protect them, because they were believers. They were good believers. This child was an unrighteous child, an evil child, something beyond their control. Obviously, they were not going to raise this kind of child. I mean, being righteous people, they would want to raise a righteous child. But some things are beyond our control. This would be an evil child who would do so much harm and damage to the parents, spiritually to destroy them to the point where they would fall into, or could fall into, possible disbelief. So Allah had Al-Khidr take that child's life in order to spare them this trial. The parents would have another child in exchange for him who would be better than him. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah does not destine for a believer a portion of destiny except that there is good in it for him. Qatada, one of the students of Ibn Abbas, he commented on this incident saying, indeed what Allah destines for the believer which is distasteful for him is better for him than what he likes. When the boy had been born to his parents, they were happy. And they were sad when the boy was killed. But if the boy had stayed with them, he would have caused their destruction. So a human being should be pleased with Allah's destiny. This is the point. I believe he never suffers trial except that it is good for him. And because if he's patient with it, then Allah rewards him for it. And he gets something better. This is the promise of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, which he brought us from Allah. That whatever harm comes to us, if we're patient with it, then Allah will replace it with better. And there's this dua which Allah taught many of the believers to say. That is, oh Allah, help me in my time of trial. And replace it with something better than it. When Salama lost her husband, and they had gone to Ethiopia together in the first Hijrah, when she came back and she lost her husband, and the Prophet sent this dua, this supplication for her to say, she said, she at first was reluctant to say it because who could be better than Abu Salama? She thought, but then she remembered, okay, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ told her to say it, then it must be good. So she said it and continued to use this dua, finding solace in this dua, and then Prophet Muhammad ﷺ proposed marriage to her. Others had proposed and she refused them. But then when the Prophet ﷺ proposed, she realized this was what is better than Abu Salama. Of course, she told the Prophet ﷺ that, I'm a very jealous woman. Maybe I will cause problem. And he said, don't worry about it. I'll ask Allah to help you with your jealousy. And she married him, and he took her children. And she mentioned also, of course, she had a bunch of kids with her, and he promised that he would look after them, take care of them for her. So Allah replaced her loss with something better. And this is the general practice of the believers. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, the fear of the believer is an amazing thing. And this is only in the case of the true believer. Whenever good comes to him or her, they thank Allah, and Allah rewards them. And when calamities strike, they are patient with it, and Allah rewards them. There's benefit in all aspects of life for the true believer. So this lesson here, Al-Khidr is teaching that things can happen because, in our lives, we find children die. And some people become disbelievers just for the loss of their child. It's even mentioned in some narrations that when the boy was killed, the parent got a girl in its place. And, there's a tendency of people to favor boys over girls. So even when they lost the boy, of course, who they were very happy with, and they got the girl, they were somewhat happy to get another child, but they felt the loss of the boy. It was sad, that boy we've got a girl now, but we lost the boy. And it would not be in their lives until many years later Perhaps not even before they died, but on the day of judgment, when the reality of what happened to them would hit them. And they would realize, when Allah would show them what would have happened if that boy had grown up with them. And they would realize that they were saved with this girl. But as human beings, these things happen in our lives. A child dies. When you listen to many atheists, why they disbelieve, because something, some tragedy struck them which they can't explain. This innocent child is killed. Why? Why did Allah allow this child to die? This is the response. And then there can't possibly be a God if this God is going to allow these type of things to happen. The point is, what we're taught here is that behind these things are other things which we don't understand. Ultimately, there's good in it. Whether we can see it or not, whether we eventually see it or not, there is good. Because whatever Allah destines is for good. Allah does not destine pure evil. Human beings do truly evil acts, meaning that they intend evil and they do it, if Allah permits it. But Allah does not do anything which is truly evil, meaning purely evil. There are some things which will have evil aspects to it, but there is a good side. A good side which we may not be able to see. Just like in our lives, we will take certain evil things in order to get good results. Medicine, which tastes horrible, the doctor tells you, take this medicine. It looks horrible, it tastes horrible, it smells horrible. The doctor says you take it, you'll get better. You do it. You take this horrible thing for the good result. So the intent of the medicine is not nasty taste and smell, etc., but the cure. Similarly, when Allah permits certain apparently evil things to take place in our lives, there is a better goal which Allah seeks from it. That this good can only be produced, or Allah wishes that it be produced through this apparently evil channel. Now, the last lesson taught, verse 82. Allah goes on there to say,
وأما الجدار فكان لغلامين يتيمين في المدينة وكان تحته كنز لهما وكان أبوهما صالحا فأراد ربك أن يبلغا أشدهما ويستخرجا كنزهما رحمة من ربك وما فعلته عن أمري ذاك تأويل ما لم تسطع عليه صبرا.
For the wall, it belonged to two orphans living in the town. There was a treasure under the wall belonging to them, and their father was a righteous man. The Lord wanted them to reach maturity and extract their treasure by your Lord's grace. And I didn't do any of it on my own. That is the real meaning of those things which you were unable to patiently bear. So what happened to the wall? Why did Al-Khidr do good to people who had treated them so badly? He wasn't doing it to those people. Al-Khidr perceived that it appears here, one of them in their place, he's fixing it, he's helping them. But no, he explained that really this wall belonged to a righteous man who had died and left behind two orphans. And Allah wished for them to get this wealth. So in order to protect those children's wealth, Khidr rebuilt the wall. So then when they reach maturity, this is the time when the wall would finally fall over, the treasure would be revealed, they are now adults, they can take their treasure and benefit for it. Well, what is this showing us here? It is showing us that Allah will benefit the righteous. So much so that it can even be through the children. I mean, Allah is not going to benefit and help evil children, because as we showed, he took the evil children away from the righteous parents. But in another way, where the righteous parents, because people worry about the future. You know, a person may take a path in life which is a righteous path, and people say, well, what are you going to do with this righteous path? How are you going to look after your children? You know, this is not a means to take care of your children. I know it's a question which was placed in front of me myself when I studied in Medina, focusing on Islamic studies. Prior to becoming a Muslim, I was studying biochemistry and management, which was to benefit my future. But then I became a Muslim. I started to learn Arabic. I went to Medina, studied Arabic and studied Islamic studies. And questions would be put to me from my relatives, my parents. What are you going to do with this knowledge afterwards? How are you going to look after your family, which was growing? It was a question which created doubts in my own mind, to be honest. You know, but I did feel that Allah knows best. You know, I mean, this what I was seeking was a good thing, so a way would be found. Somehow, some way, I would be able to utilize this knowledge. And I must say that Allah has been very merciful to me personally in my own life, that in spite of the fact that my family has grown and grown, Allah has found and provided ways and means for me to be able to look after them. And people ask me now, well, you have kids. What are you going to do? What if you die? Well, I do believe that if I try to do what is right and what is good, try to raise the children as best as I can in a righteous way, that Allah ultimately will provide for them. Of course, we do whatever we can, you know, but our focus should not be so much in the future that I have to do this, I have to do that for the children, so and so and so, that we neglect what we have to do Islamically for ourselves and in the immediate present. Hopefully, Allah will provide for us if we try to be righteous. You know, as Allah said in many other places in the Qur'an, نَحْنُ نَرْزُقُكُمْ وَإِيَّاهُمْ. We provide for both you and your children. We provide provision. We have already written what is to be for them. The important thing is just to try to do the right thing in our lives now. Leave the rest to Allah. We do what is right, what is good. Use whatever means Allah has given us. But ultimately, we must leave the affairs to Allah. So, Al-Khidr has taught Prophet Musa these lessons. And in teaching Prophet Musa, Allah relays that to us for us to learn from these lessons. What do we learn? That incidents in our lives, no matter how bad they may seem or uncomfortable they become, there is good behind them. So we need to be patient. To be patient with it, knowing that ultimately Allah does not intend evil for anyone. As Allah said, وَلَا يَظْلِمُ رَبُّكَ أَحَدًا. And your Lord is not unjust to anyone. So we have to believe there's justice in it. Even if it is punishment, then we have to know, of course, we deserve this punishment. So there's no injustice there. Even if all we can get out of it, we can see and take from it is that we're being punished. Well, hey, know that we deserve that punishment. Because how are our lives? How has it been? Have we been the best Muslims we can be? Have we been the true believers that we should be? Or have we been disobedient to God in so many areas in our lives? So that any calamity which strikes us, really, we do deserve it. But even in spite of all of that, though we deserve it, Allah is most merciful. And if it comes, there is a lesson. There is something in there. There is some good in there, whether we see it or not. Now, this basically tells us how to deal with the paradoxes of life, where we seem to lose things, but in fact, we are gaining. Where cruelty may appear, but in fact, it is a mercy. This life has aspects to it which are beyond our knowledge. We have to accept that. Accept the destiny. This is the sixth pillar of faith. That we accept the destiny, both the good of it as well as the evil of it. The good things coming to us, of course, no problem in accepting that. But the evil of it, we have to also accept it, to patiently handle it. And this provides and puts a person in a very stable and relaxed and peaceful state of mind and life and heart. Now, there's a point which I'd like to make before we close this message. And that is that there are some people who claim that they are like Khidr and that we should be like Moses to them. They're referred to as Sufi masters, peers, sheikhs, etc., who have followers who are referred to as murids. Murid meaning one who gives up their will to their teacher. They only do whatever he commands them to do. And they never question him in anything that he does. And on the basis of this, they will use the story of Musa and Khidr and say, see, this is the example. There were lessons to be learned, but it could only be learned by not questioning. So you want to learn, you want to reach the spiritual heights, you come through me, you must be like Moses to Khidr. But this is actually an opening of a door to corruption. Because Prophet Musa was the last of the messengers. No more revelation is coming to anybody. So we know that the Shaykh is not receiving revelation, he cannot be compared to Al-Khidr. And you, can you be compared to Moses? Are you a prophet of Allah? To put yourself in that kind of position? No. So that example of Khidr and Musa cannot be brought into our daily lives for somebody to claim that he is like Khidr and you should be like Musa. Because there's no way. There's no comparison. And that, as I said, is a door for corruption. And this is why you find certain individuals, people like Sai Baba in India, who has 10 million followers. You know, it is now, cases are being raised against him now, you know, for corruption. You know, he has sodomized many of his followers. And they've borne it in patience. And even though the information was spread, people were saying, no, no, we don't understand it. He's God, because it's what they believe. Sai Baba is God. So whatever God does, you can't understand it. But in fact, this man is sick and corrupt and is destroying people's lives. So the point is here that we don't take any human being in this way. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is the only one that we follow blindly. Whatever he did, whatever he said, we accept it and we go with it. Whatever he instructed us, we do. Every other human being must be weighed on the scale of the Sharia. If what they're doing or what they're saying goes against what the Qur'an and what the sayings of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ contain, then we reject it. No matter how high spiritually they may claim to be, etc., we reject them as being deviant. They've deviated, they're evil. The Qur'an and the Sunnah has been left behind as our measure. And that's what we should follow in our lives. With that, dear viewers, I'd like to thank you for being with us in this segment of our program, Understanding the Qur'an. And we hope to see you in the coming segments where we start to look at the story of Al-Qarnayn. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.